Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports on a hot Thursday afternoon in New York. It's insanely hot. But you know who else is insanely hot? The Mets. I don't know if it's Grimace. I don't know if it's the fact that they're on the road, but they've won 7 of their last 8. Went out to the heart of Texas, rode the Christie Week, they're 2 out of 3, and all of a sudden they're right back in the playoff mix. We're going to dive into what has really gotten the Mets going. Is it sustainable as they head to Wrigley and take on Chicago? The Yankees have a tough series with the Orioles. They get Garrett Cole back. They look pretty good, but the warts are still there. The defense is struggling. The bullpen is struggling. Injuries are mounting. They do get Aaron Judge back this afternoon. There's a little bit more concerns that we have to talk about. The Rangers, at the end of the show last week, they re-signed Capo Caco. They also waived Barclay Goodrow. Why that is a good thing, the Rangers cap space long term. What's that mean going forward? If the Rangers are getting rid of people and re-signing people, the Devils are making trades. They added Markstrom from Calgary to improve their net mining. We'll dive into that. The Liberty get a big win in Vegas. They hit 18 threes and still lose in Phoenix. We'll dive into that. We'll talk NYCFC's rough week, but their lease on their new stadium is interesting. Red Bulls lose, but make them, well, actually they draw, but they make some history in the process, and a whole lot more. Coming up next here on New York State Sports Ice, prepared direct feed for all that is sports. That is all coming up in just a bit. And be sure to remind you that you could follow me on X at Rickenator555 at NY State Sports IE. If you're looking to follow along on X, also feel free to comment here on the StreamYard chat here on YouTube. It was a good, fun conversation that we're going to have. It's been a really good week in New York. I've been diving through the topics, and there's just so much we have to get into. But before we pay the bills, I want to do some sad news. Fortunately, this week, baseball lost an icon in Willie Mays, 93 years old. Everybody remembers him from the catch in 1954 in the World Series. Had some time here in New York. Was on the Mets 73 World Series team at the end of his career. And he is the all-around great baseball player. I've been trying to read up on him the last couple of days, check out some documentaries, things like that. And this is a guy, like, if you want to look up 5-tool player, Willie Mays was a 5-tool player. So baseball is mourning his loss. There's the great game at Rickwood Field tonight between the Giants and the Cardinals. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But New York lost a great one in Willie Mays. It lets you dive into the yesteryears a little bit. If I could go back in time and watch any baseball team, it would probably be like the Brooklyn Dodgers. So to see Dodgers Giants and those memorable times in the 50s, that was a big thing for me. So again, our thoughts and prayers go out to the Mays family. Everybody in Major League Baseball. A tough week this week. So as we get set to dive into baseball, we got to pay those bills. So we're going to give you some words from our sponsors, Planet Jerky and Seal the Deal Wax Seals. And then we will talk some Mets and Yankees coming up next here on New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back in just a minute.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
Be sure to check out our great sponsors here, Turkey and Seal the Deal Wax Seals. Look for that great snack, take you to the beach. We got that fun spicy Carolina Reaper flavor that, I don't know if that'll mess with the beach, but hey, it's hot. Have some hot jerky. And of course, those great invitations for your graduation parties. Seal the Deal Wax Seals. You can find that iesportsradio.com/Seal the Deal Wax Seals, which is a fun, cool link that we have here. Also, go to the shop, check out some cool merch, those hats, those t-shirts, all those fun things that we have. Be sure to check those out. You don't get this hat here. This is an awesome hat. Unfortunately, you don't get that hat at IE Sports Radio, but you can find this podcast, Apple, on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeart, the whole 9 yards, for those not listening live. But those who are listening live, Mr. Ralph is here. How are you, pal? Taryn, glad to see that you're enjoying the show today. So let's start with the Mets, and let's start with Grimace. Now, I am the biggest McDonald's fan. I'm not that keen on Grimace, but if somebody wants to get a rally going and use that as a spark, all power to you. Mets are on fire. I mean, there's a completely different tone last week you had on this show as we did this week. Now, does that mean that I think they're long-term going to the playoffs? No. I still think there's some flaws with this group. But it's hard to deny. They take the last two against the Marlins, including a walk-off home run by J.D. Martinez. They sweep the San Diego Padres in dominant fashion. Saw Edwin Diaz throw 100 miles an hour over the weekend. And then they go to Texas, defending World Series champs. I know the Rangers don't have a lot of pitching right now, but Monday they dominate 14-2. They score 7 runs in the first 2 innings. Then on Tuesday, down 6-2. Looks like that it's okay if they lose one, but they rally. Francisco Alvarez gets a 2-run double in the 8th. We'll dive into him in a minute. And then Pete Alonso with the game-winning hit in the 9th. Last night they take a tough loss, but all in all, Sean Manaea to throw almost 40 pitches in the first inning and to still pitch into the 6th. I'll give him credit for that. Pete Alonso went deep. Bullpen did struggle. But when you go on the road and take 2 out of 3, that's still progress. And to put this Met team that going into their game against Chicago on Friday at 35-38, I mean, they are in the mix for a wild card, which is weird to say in the National League, but they have found their groove. And I bring up Francisco Alvarez. This is a guy the Mets extremely missed in their lineup. You talk about a guy that rounds out the order. When you've got Vientos sitting at third base the way he has, and if Jeff McNeil and Harrison Bader can find some consistency, it's only going to round out the order. But coming into Wednesday's game, the Mets were 18-1 in their last 19 games that Francisco Alvarez played in. He's clearly made a big factor on the pitchers. He's been big defensively. And the one thing I look back on, an article I did over at Mets Verizon on Tuesday after the game, was I went back to Alvarez's numbers last year, particularly in late game situations. Who is that guy on the Mets that you want up with the game on the line? And Alvarez is probably the lead candidate. He was second in home runs in the seventh inning or later behind Pete Alonso. He was top 2 or 3 in RBIs. This year, in a small sample size, he's around the same. So he's clearly shown at least he's got somewhat of a clutch gene. Does that carry over to the rest of the year? We'll see. But when he gets a big hit, this is a guy that brings energy into the mix. He's a guy that is an instant catalyst for this team that they clearly missed him, and that led to the funk they were in. They're still kind of in that funk, but their pitching has kind of stabilized itself. If this lineup can find any sort of consistency, they can compete. And the key word of this is compete. There's not a Met fan out there that wants this team to sell. Unless you're a big believer in just tearing it down, playing the kids, all this stuff. Especially after last year, I think any Met fan, all they would want is to see the team compete for a playoff spot. And they're in position to do that. They're about a half a game to a game and a half out. And they take on a Cubs team this week that isn't very good. You got Jose Quintana tomorrow against Shota Imanaga. Imanaga's a really good pitcher. Tyler McGill goes on Saturday. And then Sunday Night Baseball, you get David Peterson. So the Mets actually get some national television time this week. We'll see if they don't embarrass themselves. But Wrigley's a weird place, especially with these afternoon games. Wind might blow out, things like that. Cubs, though, are right where the Mets are. I mean, these two teams split earlier in the season. And right now, the Mets are a game out of the playoffs. The Cubs are about a game as well. Nationals hold that last spot at 36 and 37, which is just weird to say. But that's where the NL is. So if you're the Mets, take 2 out of 3 and then get yourself into the Subway Series, starting to feel good. Speaking of the Subway Series, let's turn over to the Yankees, who have some action today against the Orioles. 4 o'clock Eastern. Aaron Judge is in the lineup. He is in center field, and he's batting third, especially after taking the hit by pitch to the hand on Tuesday. It looked like the Yankees were going to be without Aaron Judge for a long time, especially after watching the other coast and seeing Mookie Betts get hit in the hand and missing the next 6 to 8 weeks. Fortunately, he's here. Fortunately, Garrett Cole is back, and I thought the Yankees did the right thing. They kept him out. Well, not kept him out, but kept him in a reserved role last night. Just 62 pitches, just 4+ innings. But you have to understand the nature of why the Yankees are doing this. They're looking at it from the long haul. They need Garrett Cole healthy for the latter portion of the year. And with all the adrenaline of the return, how big this series is, you could easily see Cole get injured because that body is going to want to do more than it's capable of, despite throwing about, I think it was like 75, 80 pitches against Rochester in his last AAA rehab start. So the Yankees played the cautious route. That's not the issue with the Yankees right now. And there's a couple of things as they're trying to win the series today. Cole Irvin goes for Baltimore against Luis Heel for the Yankees. The biggest issues are, I think, defensively and mainly a catcher. Right now, everybody's running on Jose Trevino. I'm running on Trevino. Larry's running on Trevino. Ralph's running on. We're all just going to steal bases. And the Red Sox embarrassed him on Sunday. 9 stolen bases on Sunday Night Baseball. That can't happen. And then last night in extra innings, and the Yankees are a bad extra inning team. They are the ones that hate the runner on second rule because it seems like every time they play these extra inning games, they allow a couple of runs. Trevino makes an awful throw to third. The Orioles get that extra insurance run. That was coupled by Verdugo missing the cutoff man, allowing Mullins to get to second base on eventually the game-winning base hit in the 10th. And the Yankees end up losing 7-6. And at some point, you got to look at Trevino and look at the Yankees and say you have Austin Wells there. As great as Trevino is in helping the pitchers, then the pitchers got to do a better job at making sure people stop running. Like we said this about the Mets, who spent 2 months trying to throw out a base runner. At some point, it's got to stabilize itself. You cannot give up runs, especially when you're playing an Oriole team that is athletic, that does have speed, that does do so many different things. So that's a killer for them. The injury bug's a killer for them as well. Anthony Rizzo fractures his hand. He's out for a while. Now, they called up Ben Rice, who's one of their better hitting prospects. He's shown some good things the first 2 games. But they're still now trying to figure out, do we have something at first base? Do we need to make a move? Because Rizzo's not doing anything for the next month. So you're looking at Rizzo maybe in August and September. Is that enough? Is DJ LeMahieu enough? And then you look at his bullpen. They had to go out today and bring in Tim Hill, a 34-year-old journeyman that got cut by the White Sox, to just have any arms in the bullpen. And Tim Hill doesn't exactly help the bullpen's biggest problem. They can't strike anybody out. And in this day and age in baseball, if you can't strike people out, and the Yankees love these ground ball pitchers. Clay Holmes is great at getting the ground ball outs, and I think Clay Holmes is a really good closer. He's been hit hard the last couple of games. And you've seen Marinaccio struggle. You've seen Victor Gonzalez struggle. Ian Hamilton's now back on the injured list again. They need some stabilization in that bullpen. And I don't know, we've said it the last couple of weeks, they need a guy that's going to strike people out. And that doesn't necessarily have to throw 100, but you've got to get swings and misses. You've got to get whiffs. That's the way you're going to beat these teams that can drag out at bats, that can make pitchers work. That's the kind of thing that gets you beat in the playoffs. And when we talk about nitpicking for the Yankees, we're not nitpicking for the regular season. I mean, I'll give him credit in the world. Giancarlo Stanton had 4 RBIs last night. Gets a 3-run homer in the 7th. The game-time single off Craig Kimbrell. Looked like he was going to have another Yankee moment in what has been a comeback season for him, but they end up losing in extras. And unfortunately, that was the spot I wanted to see Aaron Judge up last night in the 10th inning instead of Jahmai Jones. So that's something you want to take a look at and wonder what's really going on with this team. And it'll be a big series going up against the Braves. They play Atlanta this week. Chris Sale goes on Friday, so the Yankees see an old friend. That'll be a 7 o'clock first pitch on Apple TV. Saturday night on Fox against Charlie Morton, and then Sunday, Max Fried against Nestor Cortez. It'll be a fun one. Also want to mention that if you buy Planet Jerky, you mention them on Instagram, and you mention that you heard it from here, you get a free gift bag. So that is highly incentive. Make sure you check out some of that Planet Jerky stuff. Wanted to make sure we brought that up. You can see the cool astronaut logo on your screen. Definitely a jerky that is out of this planet, and for good reason. So the Yankees will play the Braves, and then they will head out to Citi Field to play the Mets. And what looks to be an interesting mini series, Tuesday at Citi Field, if the weather holds up, it's going to be Garrett Cole and Luis Severino. Now, that is going to be a fun matchup. I've been in Subway Series games, and trust me, sorry, Met fans, Yankee fans pack Citi Field better than anybody out there. I don't know why that is, but it's just always been the case. And the Subway Series, to me, is more along the lines of it's something fun. We talked about as the Yankee-Red Sox rivalry lost its luster last week, and I think it has. The Subway Series, I don't think is a rivalry, but it's not poking fun at anybody. It's just something that's there to bring entertainment to New Yorkers during the summer, where you want those bragging rights. You want, like, hey, we went into your building and beat you, or hey, the Mets are seen as the little brother of the Yankees, and they went out and stole a couple of games. But to look at the juice in this, to see Severino face the Yankees for the first time and see the adrenaline he brings. Severino's a guy that will bring his energy to the table. He will get amped for this the way he gets amped for a playoff game. And I think that's why you'll see his best stuff. There's Garrett Cole now being put into Baltimore and put into the Subway Series. Can they able to dial him back even more? And that's where you wonder if you just kept Cole back a couple weeks, would have really have hurt the Yankees that much. If you could have continued to ease him along in the minors, even though it really wouldn't have done anything for him. But I think he'll like this moment. Yankees went to Toronto after that, so it'll kind of be a lull in between as they head to the end of June. But I think both teams are heading into the Subway Series in the right direction. And it didn't look like that 2 weeks ago. And that's a credit to both managers. I mean, Aaron Boone's done some good things. We talked about Brad Ausmus managed a little bit this week due to Aaron Boone's, one of his kids graduating. But you look at Carlos Mendoza and his ability to move the lineup around and to put things in place. Ralph says best rivalry is Islanders-Rangers. I could see that. That's a good question. I think locally, I still think Yankees-Mets is there. I mean, Giants and Jets don't play that much against each other to really be a rivalry. Knicks and Nets haven't really established anything. Maybe that's just the state of New York sports that really neither of these teams really have a rivalry. So you could put Islanders-Rangers in that mix because you saw both those teams contending for a playoff spot last year and some of the tough matchups they had toward the end of the year. I mean, Rangers-Devils, when we'll get into the hockey in a little bit, but not really a good state of the rivalries in New York. But this should be a fun matchup the next couple of days, and we'll recap it next week. So let's take our first break. We'll go from the baseball diamond to the hockey rink Rangers make some moves, and the Devils make a big trade. Let's talk about that next here on New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be back after this.
Hey, Cleveland and Columbus sports fans. This is Jen B, host of the Show of the Land on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. If you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in live to the Show of the Land on Tuesdays, where we will cover the Cleveland Browns, Cavs, Guardians, and Monsters. We will also talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, Crew, Fury, and of course, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll also cover other colleges in the area like Akron, Kent State, Cleveland State, Mount Union, John Carroll, Baldwin Wallace, Youngstown State, among others. So like I said, if you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in Tuesdays to the Show of the Land with Jen B on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, everybody? This is Darren Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back here to New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. Rick Keeler back here with you on a hot Thursday here in New York. So to cool off a little bit as we get rid of the heat, we got to go to the hockey rink and talk some pucks. As we first talk, we're going to talk about the New York Rangers before we get into the big trade with the Devils. I think the Devils deserve more of their recognition for the urgency they've shown right before the free agency, which is kind of weird in the NHL that we still have the finals going on. Game 6 tomorrow night. Edmonton hanging in this thing somehow, but the draft is next week. Free agency is really close, so there's not really an off season in the NHL when you think about it. It's just going to keep going. But the Rangers doing a couple of moves to start things off. They re-signed Capo Caco to the end of last week's show. 1 year, about $2.4 million. Does it change anything? I don't think so. I think ultimately they're going to look to try to move him. It's different than Alexis Lafreniere, or at least Lafreniere, toward when going into last year, kind of found a way to establish himself and become one of the better players on this Ranger team where you could see a long-term future with him. Kako, you don't. And it's kind of not fair to him. He's still a really young player, and maybe he's a guy that he gets traded to another organization and he kind of finds himself a little bit more, but they've tried him in so many different spots, and he's been okay. I don't think he's been awful necessarily, but he's not the number 2 pick. And ultimately, Lafreniere has shown you signs that they are the number 1 pick. And to Ralph's point, they've already got preseason schedules out for the Islanders and Rangers, which is still 3 months away. Rangers, I think, are going to play 2 with the Bruins, 2 with the Islanders, and 2 with the Devils. I think so. It's 6 preseason games or so when I saw it today. Larry brought a good point to the end of the last segment. The New York Derby is actually, I think, a really emerging rivalry. And I think when they get that stadium, and we'll dive into the stadium in our next segment because we're going to actually have a special guest on to talk some soccer and WNBA for a little bit. But that's an emerging rivalry. But getting back to the Rangers, trying to find Kako to the top line, trying to get into the third line, trying to get him all over the place. There's just not a fit there. And I think at least now you've re-signed him, you've got him on a manageable salary. It's a team that it's a salary that somebody's going to want to trade for. A salary that not a lot of people wanted to trade for was Barclay Goodrow. and he was going to be on the Rangers cap for the next couple of years. This is a team that has to make moves with limited cap space. So instead of trying to find a keeper and a trade partner for Goudreau, the Rangers just waived him. And San Jose picks him up. Goudreau started his career with the Sharks. They took on that money. So the Rangers are now saved from cap space for the next 3 years. I know there was a report out there that Goudreau wasn't happy. And I think what Chris Drury should tell him, and Larry Brooks of the Post wrote a great column on this, I don't care. I know that the Sharks are maybe one of the teams on that no trade list, but you have to win a cup here in New York, and you only have 2 or 3 years, you would think, to do it with Peter Laviolette. You have to make business moves. Barclay Goudreau was really good with New York. He was really good in the postseason this past year, but they have to find ways to get better, and they have to be creative in ways to get better. And the only way they can is to try to save some of that cap space. So to make those moves, you have to make those unfriendly business moves. And waiving Barclay Goudreau isn't going to cost the Rangers a player in free agency or cost them making a trade down the line. So you weigh the pros and cons. Hopefully the pros win out here. Now, we'll see what the Rangers decide to do. There's been rumors about Tyler Toffoli. Tyler Bertuzzi would be another interesting one. I kind of like Bertuzzi more than Toffoli. I think you need a little more grit with this team. I think Bertuzzi would work tremendously. There's been talks that Patrick Kane maybe wants to come back. I need to see Patrick Kane healthy. That was the problem for Kane when he was with the Rangers about a year and a half ago. He was never fully right. If he feels like some kind of redemptive story and wants to come back on a reasonable salary, that could work. But can you trust Kane to stay healthy? That's, I think, to me, the tough part. They have the big pieces there. I think it's just a question of finding the grit role player, more scoring kind of variety. Rangers don't have the biggest work to do. The Devils did, and they go out there, they get a new coach, and they land a big goalie in Jacob Markstrom from Calgary. And they didn't give up a lot to get him. They gave up a defenseman in Kevin Ball. They gave up a top 10 protected pick in the 2025 draft. And Calgary has to retain about 31% of the salary. And this is a player that when we were talking Devils toward the end of the season, toward the trade deadline, Markstrom was a player that they wanted to get. He was unhappy in Calgary. He wanted a deal, and the Devils find a way. Last year, he was 23-23-2, 905 save percentage, about 2.7 goals against. And now you put him with Jake Allen. I think that makes a lot of sense. You now have 2 veterans in the mix. You're not relying on these young goaltenders that New Jersey did a couple of years ago when they made that run and beat the Rangers in the playoffs. Look, this was the missing piece to their team. They needed a big piece. Sheldon Keefe goes out and gets a big piece. And they're looking to win in the East. I don't think a pick matters in the 2025 draft because they have a 10th pick in this year's NHL draft. They could go out and make a splash there, even though this is somewhat of a weak draft. But I love that the Devils and Tom Fitzgerald and that front office are very quick to see they had a need. We're going to address it. We're not going to wait for free agency to do it because we're seeing teams do that. We saw the Kings trade for Darcy Kemper. Like there are moves to be made before July. And there's that urgency that you're seeing with the Goudreau move and then with New Jersey. So both these teams doing some good things. The Islanders also re-signed Kyle McLean. So that adds to their 4th line. So all 3 NHL teams making some moves this week. We'll get to free agency in a couple of weeks, get to the draft in a couple of weeks. Nonstop NHL. I'm not picking Edmonton to win the series, but if I'm Florida, I don't want to go back to Sunrise for Game 7. Connor McDavid, I think, is having his signature moment. I think even if the Oilers lose, he has found his stage, and that was a classic performance in Game 5 to seal that series. But be sure to tune in Neutral Zone for that next week. They had a good post-game show after Game 5. Let's take one more break. We'll come back. We'll bring in my special guest. We'll talk some soccer, both New York teams in action, some interesting terms in the lease for NYCFC, potential new stadium that we're going to talk about and what that can mean for future stadiums, and the Liberty winning in Vegas, losing in Phoenix, and they might have a gripe with the WNBA about a Commissioner's Cup venue change that they were not necessarily on board for. We'll dive into all that coming up next here on New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all their sports. We'll be right back in just a minute.
Hey, sports fans. Are you in the market for Florida sports or just keeping up with the latest in the panhandle? Palm Tree Sports is a dedicated audio hub to all things sports in the Sunshine State. We cover current events, big news, heavily favored opinions all across the NFL, NBA, MLB, and so much more. So come check us out every Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For a down south education on Florida sports and athletics, it's hosted by yours truly, Corey Pujols, and is powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Are you a fan of Buffalo sports? Are you thinking of changing loyalties and becoming a Buffalo sports fan? Do you even know where Buffalo is on the map? Did you know Canada is closer to Buffalo than New York City? Welcome to the Buffalo Huddle, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax. This is a podcast designed for you, the passionate sports fan. I know you love your sports. Who doesn't? I cover Buffalo sports and so much more by bringing in the human elements. I call it Buffalo Sports with a Twist. Join me as we take a journey into the world of Buffalo sports. I guarantee you'll fall in love with Buffalo just like I did. Each week we start with an inspiration, question of the day, a Buffalo fun fact, and our weekly challenge to you, the listener. Come huddle up with me every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time for the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As we say in Buffalo, go Bills!
And welcome back here to New York State on the Sports IE Sports Radio feed for all that is sports. Really weird. About a month from now, we'll be talking training camp football. So it'll be a lot of fun talking some of the gridiron here on the show as we get set now to look into some of the other sports here in New York, some of the other strong teams that we have going on. They're going to get some attention throughout the fall, even with football and pennant races and things like that going on. WNBA and soccer. In order to do that, I wanted to bring in a special guest to the show. We haven't really had to have guests on that often, but why don't we bring in the man who's been behind the glass for the last few shows and also the host of the Defining Moment, 3 and Out, sports couple perspective. Basically, his fingerprints all over IE Sports Radio. Larry B is in the house. Larry, how the heck are you?
Man, what's going on, brother? That's our other producer doing all the, Just kidding. Anyway, so what's good, man? Glad to be on the show, man. Thank you so much for having me today, Ricky. It's it's been a pleasure having you do this show and kick some ass, have some fun doing it, man. Really, I mean, all I really got to do is watch you, man, because you just kind of just take the cake, man. So I really appreciate you and for all you've done. And amazing show so far, amazing show as always. And I love it, man. I'm a West Coast guy over here, enjoying those New York sports with you, man. So I really enjoy what you do.
Thank you very much. So speaking of the West Coast, let's keep you on the happy mode before we get into the not so good things that one of your other teams might take the next couple of days. NYCFC last night playing in LA against the Galaxy. I don't know what these weird jerseys they got going on. They tried to wear those weird jerseys the last time against LA and got blown out, and it didn't really help them last night, losing 2-0. 41st minute goal by Joveljic, and then Fagundes in the 49th minute. James Sands had a tough giveaway that led to the first goal. There's a lot of talk with NYCFC right now about they're not finding the right pieces to plug in with the right substitutes. This coming off of a loss to Columbus, where they lost 3-2. They took a red card early, were up at the half, and then everything just backfired. What did you see last night? Galaxy are a really good team, really good front line, but 2 straight losses for an NYCFC team that was kind of rolling. Not exactly the thing they want to have right now.
I'll tell you right now, Ricky, it was something to see. It was something to see. And the reason why I was so excited for last night's game was because, yeah, Ricky, for the first time in a couple of years, the Galaxy is actually worth a crap. I know, shocker. Don't let me faint right now. But it's kind of funny when you see a team that just I mean, come on, man, with the through the Zlatan crap, you know what I mean? Chicharito was there for a little bit. We still weren't all that great. I mean, at the end of the day, the Galaxy's been just kind of just this crap. You know what I mean? Like they've just been giving us crap. No, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm also talking about the Lakers being crap, right? I always give them crap. But at the end of the day, guess what? The Lakers have, 17 banners, and who am I to complain, right? But then again, we all love our sports. I mean, obviously, you're a Yankee guy. So, you're over here talking about everyone and their mother running on Trevino earlier. At the end of the day, it's you love the history, but what are we doing now, right? So I mean, same thing. Galaxy, man, we got so many MLS Cups, and it's great. But recently, it's been trashed, and then these new fools, LAFC, move into town, and they start getting good, and they win a freaking cup, and it's a little annoying. So, yeah, Ricky, last night, the buildup to the season has been – last year was just kind of blah. Another year where we just looked like crap. This year, man, Cecilia and I, we made it out to a game this year. We saw them tie St. Louis FC, and that was a hell of a game. But I'll tell you right now, man, this is actually yeah, it was a good one. Actually, they won. I'm sorry, they I thought, or was it a tie? I forgot, but I don't know. It was a great game. Now, this game right here, look. NYCFC, I mean, they just won a couple years ago in the craziest way, like on a nail biter a couple years ago. This is a good soccer team, man. They're a good soccer team with a bunch of solid athletes. They're good, man. I'll tell you that right now. I know at the moment, they may not be like the best in the league, but at the end of the day, NYCFC has some solid freaking players. Well, guess what? To see my Galaxy be able to compete with those guys last night, and not only compete, but win 2-0, dude, I mean, it was awesome. The first goal was nuts. I mean, it's right place, right time. That's all it was. The first goal was right place, right time. Defense gets that steal, and it just happened. You know what I mean? It just happened. It happened in the penalty area, and it was just something. It was a thing of beauty. I know last night watching that, I was like, oh yeah, and then. So, it's funny doing this for so many years. You can't help but think about the other person, because I know being the other person what that feels like. You know what I mean? So last night I was like, oh, that was awesome. Oh, Ricky's probably pissed off, but that was awesome for me. So yeah, man, it was really cool seeing that happen. We didn't have Ricky Cood last night. You know what I mean? So we needed a boost, and it happened. It was awesome seeing that. And it was a special win for us, Jevelish doing his thing there. And then right after that, man, freaking Fagundes gets it done. I mean, honestly, Ricky, I hate to say this, but after having the year we did last year and the last couple of years, you kind of wait for the other shoe to drop. You know what I mean? You kind of wait for like, oh, nope. Okay, we scored 2. NYCFC is going to score 3 within 10 minutes. Watch. I mean, I hate to say it, but like just knowing this team, but that's not them right now. And I'm just so excited right now seeing the energy, the passion, what this team is bringing forth right now is just wonderful. But in speaking for the NYCFC, not speaking for them, but speaking if I was a fan on the other side, what the hell was that? I mean, they had shots on goal. They were there. They had plenty of opportunities. If I'm not mistaken, they had an opportunity like extremely early in the game. But Ricky, what the hell, man? I mean, you see this team, they're 9-2-7 on the season. They're not bad. They've won 9 games. They're in the top 5 of the East. Grant, now the Galaxy's now moved up to number 3 in the West. But dude, like, okay, I guess just being such a soccer fan for so many years, being such a sports fan, you'd expect for there to be an exchange of punches, right? And NYCFC just kind of sat there and just got punched a couple times yesterday and was like, okay, thank you, bye. Like, so I don't know, Ricky. I mean, what did you see last night in that game?
Well, you brought up something that's, I think, a good thing to move into the other sports. A lot of solid players, but not the player. Like, who is the guy? And right now, their top all-star is their goaltender. and
Yeah.
Freeze is doing a good job. He's doing a good job, and at least keeping it from being too crazy when they lose. But who is that player? And that's why I think if they're serious about contending for an MLS Cup, and you mentioned they're tied for fourth in the East right now, are they able to land a key designated player this summer? Is there a guy that they can get to come here and make that impact? Because the Red Bulls, they've got that firepower. Where you look at Lewis Morgan and Emil Forsberg, and now they got this kid Julian Hall, who last night gets the game tying goal in the 88th minute in Montreal to be the second youngest scorer of a goal in MLS history.
Yeah.
So to find a way to steal one because they're down 2-0 at the half, who is that guy's going to provide the instant offense? They can't find that consistent number 9 to get those goals, so they kind of have to mix things around. Does Maxi Morales help out a little bit more? It's a little tricky. So I think the key is going to be if they can land something this summer. We talked about the rumor of maybe Griezmann last week. Is it somebody they can get from Europe or somewhere that makes an impact on this team? We're going to find out.
I mean, Ricky, let's be real, man. I mean, hey, if Inter Miami can pull freaking Messi, I mean, come on, man. I mean, and I like what you said before, though, too. Not to like cut off the show here, but I gotta say this too, Ricky. Last week you were talking a lot about like the players. I mean, you're like, come on, man. Like they play in the. I've heard it referred to as a shoebox before. Yankee Stadium, but they play in Yankee Stadium. It's not even a full-on freaking huge soccer field. But you're right. Last week you were naming off like these players you guys have and how solid they are, and they choose to play there at NYCFC. You guys can, you know what I mean? Like there can be talent. Their talent will go. But yeah, right now it's a trip. NYCFC right now with the roster they have, I don't want to say it's surprising that they have 9 wins because they definitely earned all of them. But well, hell, I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of cool. Like they're the team right now that doesn't have all this crazy all-star power, and they're still doing pretty damn good. So I don't know. And as for the Red Bulls, yeah, that was pretty crazy, man. They're also, I mean, we talked about it last week after the show, you and I, for a few minutes. Come on, man. You got 2 top 5 teams right now, you got in the MLS. I mean, it's pretty freaking sweet, man. And New York right now is they're loving it, man. You got a third place team, a fourth place team, and it's just really cool to see the fact that in in a city where the Jets are being the Jets, Aaron Rodgers is actually, I don't know. Have you seen him? I haven't seen him. Have you seen him over there? I haven't seen him.
Not yet.
Nope. Nobody's seen him. You know what I mean? The Giants don't know what they're doing. The Giants have their own problems, and oh boy, that's a canister full of problems. So in a city where there's New York, the Mets are finally catching right now. Yankees are doing their thing, but it's just in a city where the sports are so beloved, and unfortunately, it feels like the sports don't love you back sometimes. Having these 2 soccer teams at the moment right now, honestly, I feel like that's a really big a big boost there for New York.
No, I agree with you. I think that's going to help, especially in the summer. And when you get to talk about this rivalry developing, as you said earlier, if both of them in the top 4, which they are right now, it can definitely change things. But again, if you want to compete with Miami and their firepower, Cincinnati with their firepower, you have to score goals. That's the only chance you have, even if Freeze is as excellent as he is. But let's talk about what Kate broke for the end of last week. Chris Campbell had a good article in the Outfield talking about NYCFC's stadium lease. And there's some interesting things you want to check it out. They're required to have a second professional soccer club play all or some of its home games at their new stadium. So that could be like a USL Pro, MLS Next Pro, NWSL. It would talk like their number 2 team could move there. Right now they play at St. John's. But that wasn't really the big thing. They can't play games at baseball stadiums anymore. So they would have to play like at Rutgers or something like that, which I think, like you said, is a good thing for them. There's things with the parking, but the other interesting story was there is something in the lease for the possibility of being able to have marijuana at stadiums. And you and I are kind of the shell shock looking at it because it's something that's not new what's going on, but as laws change in this country, eventually, what do you make of potentially marijuana being sold at a USA venue? Like that's a big thing, I would think.
Well, this is a great topic. It is. It's a great topic. Ricky, I mean, 100 years ago, okay, we're talking 1924, okay, dude, alcohol was illegal. You know what I mean? We're talking about prohibition in
Mhm.
these years. So yeah, I mean, obviously, we're talking. Can you imagine those conversations back then? Can you imagine those podcasts back then? I'm just kidding, but yeah, but you know what I mean. Like, can you imagine? I mean, the talk must have been pretty crazy, But I'm not quite sure when they actually started serving alcohol in stadiums. But what I'm saying is whenever the hell it happened, whenever it did happen, something there had to have been this buzz of like, what? Like, you got to be kidding me. This is horrible. Alcohol is now it's legal, but it's look what it impairs you, and it's this horrible poison, and da, 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 da. And before you know it, now guess what? Now it's almost synonymous with some sports. I mean, let's just be real. I mean, you can't watch a boxing match without a big old Corona or Budweiser logo in the middle of it. You know what I mean? Everywhere you go, I mean, you go to stadiums and you see, Modelo and Coors and Budweiser and Corona, and it's everywhere. So guess what? I mean, it's something that I think took some time to grow within, like, just having people. I don't have to say I wouldn't say like morally like it, but people just, I guess, tolerate, I guess is a good word, for those who are into that kind of thing, who love a good beer with the game and everything, which is great. From what I understand, they don't serve alcohol at all in Premier League games in England, which is crazy because hey, they love their pubs, they love their a good time. And I couldn't believe it. A good friend of mine, actually, good friend of mine I work with, he goes all over the place, all over the world. And he was saying, like, yeah, he's like, dude, it's crazy. They don't serve beer. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. He's like, to think an Englishman can enjoy a pint of beer while he's watching, one of his teams play. And it's crazy to think that. But once again, it's just, it's the regulations on things and how people can get or whatever. So there's lots of fluctuation here. But when you talk about marijuana, okay, yeah, it's been legalized in a lot of states. It's something that I don't want to call it a new norm, Ricky, but I mean, hell, I feel like it's kind of going in that direction because it's something that, and once again, I don't okay, as an athlete myself for many, many, many years, I'll tell you right now, man, I can't sit here and tell you that I am opposed to marijuana whatsoever for the usage, because I do know that there are lots of different good uses for marijuana. Am I a user? No. You know what I mean? Am I somebody who has to go out right now after the show and go to the dispensary? And no, that's not my thing. The same exact way that I'm not against alcohol, but I'll tell you right now, there's not a beer in my fridge. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not, I understand social, cool, but please drink responsibly. Please drink responsibly. You know what I mean? Don't go do something stupid. Like, right from wrong. Be responsible. Now for marijuana, it's the same thing. It's okay. Well, you want to do it, cool. That's it's your choice, your deal. Don't go hurt anybody. Don't go hurt yourself. Do what you got to do, cool. But when you talk about games now, if NYCFC were to, if this were to happen and they were like, yeah, let's legalize bud, cool. Um, I'll tell you right now, you're gonna have a lot of people who are against it. The same exact way where I'm sure they were against it with alcohol when that first happened a long time ago. But realistically, I guess it just turns into one of those things where, well, let's hope that this is a good thing. Let's hope that, people don't take this too far. And Ricky, I can almost guarantee you, I don't know. I do know that things can, for instance, if somebody gets drunk, I'm sure that it can, it's going to last a little bit. But guess what? That's why they have the cutoff around the seventh inning stretch, right? Or seventh inning or sixth inning or whatever inning they choose to shut it down. Okay, we're not serving alcohol anymore, obviously, because we have about another hour to play. And you probably, I don't know if it's log. I never understood that. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand that, but I don't know. I'm guessing that it's at least like, okay, if you drove here, hopefully you didn't. You know what I mean? But if you drove here or whatever, hopefully, like, you're good by then. You know what I mean? You're sober or whatever. Now, I don't think morally that's what they were looking for, but there's that probably in the back of their mind. They're maybe thinking that. I'm thinking like, hey, if you drank, cool, and you're maybe a little tipsy, hopefully by the time the game ends, you're not so tipsy. Hopefully you're not driving. but hopefully you're not like tipsy to like fight somebody, you know what I mean? Like, or do something stupid. And that's what I'm guessing. So I'm thinking the same thing here, Ricky. Not that I've never seen somebody aggressive after smoking. I've never seen that. I've had a lot of friends who used it, and they're usually just really happy and they eat up everything in the house. But you know, Ricky, I just I don't. I see there being regulations on it. I see there being the same exact thing. Okay, so we're going to sell here for the dispensary. You're only allowed to buy it from the first to the third inning, or before. Maybe we'll open it before the game. You know what I mean? You're allowed to. If the game starts at 7:30 or 7 o'clock, it'll be open at 6. You know what I mean? And we're going to close it down like after the third inning. Smoke responsibly. I hope someone says that somewhere. You know what I mean? And maybe there's a section, because I mean, you know, not everyone's gonna want to be smelling skunks all over the place. You know what I mean? So maybe there's a section, maybe there's not, maybe, you know, designated here, designated. So this is a really, really crazy topic. But yeah, that's really my take on it. I know, Ricky, I'm sorry, I go on forever. You're sitting there like, okay, shut up. I know, I'm sorry, Ricky. But dude, what do you think about all that though, personally, from everything I said?
I mean, the article says it's like more keeping the option open. So at least now, maybe things change, like you said, in the next like few years, where like you find regulations and ways to mandate it. And in a way, you got to look at it too as brings people to the stadium. I mean, think about it. You're trying to attract a different fan, not a different fan base, but new fans to an area around City Fields, and make this team uh, have a better stage to be on. It kind of does help that, maybe not to a big extent, but if you're telling people that, yeah, you could do that, it allows people still to buy a soccer ticket and check out a game. Again, we'll see. It's still forthcoming, but real interesting. Again, Chris Campbell had that in the outfields. Check that column out. We want to get into the Liberty real quick, because I let Larry have his fun. Now I'm gonna give him some misery, because he's gonna have to watch the Sparks play Liberty twice in the next 3 days, and with the injury to Cameron Brink, it's like, why even, like, I saw that ESPN bet has Liberty favored by 15.5. If I'm betting responsibly, am I taking the points, or am I the next two games? I don't, the way Liberty are playing right now, good win in Vegas. John Cole Jones was outstanding. And while they lost in Phoenix, they hit 18 threes and lose. And Brianna Stewart found her shot. And they don't have Vandersloot. They don't have Sabally. Laura Fevich is probably the third best rookie in the league, behind Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Sandy Bordella's got her club cooking right now. Some good things out west, despite the loss on Tuesday.
Thanks, Ricky. Hey, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'll take the misery. That's okay. You know what, man? I just look. When you talk about the Sparks, when you talk about the Sparks, man, you're talking about a team, another one they have rings. They have rings. They've won. They've gotten, there's championships there. But it's just one of those years where you're like, oh my gosh, like it just started, but please end, please end, please end. I mean, dude, oh my gosh, when I saw the news the other day break that Cameron Brink is out, dude. Like, and that's it. Like, this is it. She's an ACL tear. Unfortunately, this young woman is a beast. She's done amazing things, and unfortunately now out of the Olympics, I mean, just she's a hell of a player, man. But it sucks. It sucks when you get those injuries. And yeah, man, we just can't get right. We've lost the last 3 in a row. It's just getting worse. We're 4-11 on the season. We're 8 games back in the West. Everything's just falling apart right now. Like, the walls are literally coming down right now. I feel like we're Troy. Okay, I mean, we're not too far from USC. Where they play. So I feel like the Trojan War right now, man. There's somebody inside, and the Sparks are just falling apart. And the Liberty, man, 12-3, just beautiful, beautiful basketball right now. They are playing, and they are all over the place. They're on fire. So yeah, let's just say that I'm not going to be the happiest guy. It's very, very likely that Liberty will win by double digits in both games. It's just something I can't see. I can't see them. I mean, tonight That's going to be horrible. I don't get me wrong. I have tons of faith in my Sparks. I do. I'm cheering them on. I hope they can at least give a good game. But when you're playing a game this a team this good, and the Liberty just doesn't seem to. I mean, they're a runaway train, man. You know what I mean? Like, they're just moving. You're not getting in front of that locomotive, and they are moving right now. They're gelling. And us, we don't know what's going on. Injuries here, injuries there. I mean, it just looks like this team is. I hate to say it, but I mean, season's pretty much a wrap, man. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, what do you do? I hate to say it. It's a shorter season, but realistically, the Sparks just look like they have some rough road ahead. So yeah, man, tonight and then oh my gosh, on Saturday, it's like, why can't you guys just leave us alone? Why? Like, can we just leave now? Like, do we have to play? Can we just forfeit? I don't want to watch it. Like, but yeah, man, I'm almost positive you guys will probably win by double digits in both games. I don't see there being a close game at all. I would like to say we're going to give a good fight, but realistically, man, the Liberty, they're just too damn good, and Sparks just have more problems than the calculus book, man. I mean, right now, it's just looking bad. So let's go Sparks. I'm always going to be cheering them on, but yeah, man, misery, you said it correctly, because that's exactly what's going to be going on this week for Sparks fans, unfortunately. But Liberty, hell of a team, and I'm almost positive that it'll be a clean sweep for the Liberty versus the Sparks.
There's a lot of games with Liberty this week, too. They got 2 with the Sparks, Thursday and Saturday. They have to go to Atlanta Sunday to play the Dream. And then there's the big game Tuesday against the Minnesota Lynx for the Commissioner's Cup. Now, there's a real interesting report surrounding this game. Lynx beat the Liberty earlier this year. AM New York had it. The Liberty are not happy with the WNBA about this. Now, June 25th at the Barclays Center can't happen because the NBA draft is the 26th and the 27th. The Liberty wanted to move the game to July 2nd when they're already playing the Lynx at Barclays. The WNBA steps in and gets consultation from the Lynx to move the game to UBS Arena in Long Island. I don't get it how you're a league and you're wanting to establish something that you can't say, all right, this matchup is already scheduled. Let's just make the Commissioner's Cup the following week and play the game at Barclays. Liberty earned home court advantage. They were undefeated in Commissioner's Cup play. And this is a trademark franchise that maybe hasn't won, but has been consistent, it seems, year in and year out. I don't get why the WNBA couldn't make that decision and just say, you know what, we're going to play next week. You don't have that clout to say, no, we're keeping this game the night before the draft. Just let the Liberty play at home. I don't. And now Long Island, they're not going to get the same crowd that they would get in Brooklyn. It doesn't make sense.
Stupid. Stupid. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. It's a bummer. It's a bummer when things like this happen, because now you have a very unhappy team. You have a bunch of very unhappy fans. Like, this is wrong. Can we please move things around? You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Like, really? Like,
and the Liberty League in December. Like, there's a chance that if we get here, we're not going to be able to play the championship game on that date in our building.
See, yeah, that's ridiculous, man. That's absolutely ridiculous. That. Oh my gosh, that sucks. I wasn't even fully aware of all of the things that could happen because of the domino effect, but that sucks, dude. Oh my gosh, what a bunch of crap.
I don't get it, but again, that's where the league says it's gonna be a great game. I mean, the fact that Liberty are 12-3 in a game and a half back of Connecticut's still winning. I mean, they're 13-0 against teams that aren't the Liberty, so they're doing their thing. So we'll got that. So the draft will be next week in the NBA. Next week we'll dive into the Knicks first round pick. Maybe we'll do some cool NBA draft stuff here. But before we get out of here, Larry, let the listeners know where all your shows are at and all that fun stuff with the network here.
Oh, well, I'm gonna keep this one short because I've been talking forever. My apologies, man. But yeah, everybody, it's been so much fun, Ricky. Thank you for having me on, man. Yeah, it has totally been a great ride. Over 10 years of IA Sports Radio, guys. We just went over 10 years in May. So here we are now on to year 11, and we're doing the dang thing, man. You can check me out, of course, on Twitter. Show me some love. I follow back, man. I got to get that follow back game going on, man. I got to. But yeah, at DTXE_LB53. Of course, I'm a West Coast guy, so I talk a lot of West Coast stuff. However, I talk all sports. Catch me on my show, The Defining Moment. Saturdays and Sundays. This is an East Coast show, so I will give it in Eastern time, 11 to 12 on Saturdays, Sundays, depending. Sometimes I miss here and there, but I usually announce it or anything like that. But I'm really excited. You know, we got some great sports coming on up here, man. Oh my gosh, Copa America starts up this week. We're already a weekend to the Euros, so the Euro Champion League. That's a lot of fun. We talk tons of sports every weekend, so make sure you give me a follow right here. Once again, the show gets broadcasted on this, of course, also at IE Sports Radio. On Twitter, we are at Instagram as Ricky is now, of course, on our Facebook, our YouTube channel. Check me out, give me a follow. The Defining Moment, always a great time. Tons and tons of great guests, tons and tons of great sports. We talk everything, literally everything. I mean, yeah, you want freaking Australian soccer? What's up? Like, I mean, A-League, we talk everything. All right. So tons of stuff. Always great. Always a great time there. Also, 3 and Out college edition. Those come up during the, of course, NFL and college season. Tons of fun talking football throughout the entire season there. And with my beautiful wife, the Sports Couple Perspectives, Friday evenings. Once again, it's an East Coast show, so give me an East Coast time, 8 p.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern. Really, really, really great show. We have a lot of fun talking pop culture and all the other stuff along with sports, fun topics. You don't want to miss it, so check us out there on Spreaker. Check us out, look us up. The Sports Couple Perspective. So, man, it was a lot. Definitely appreciate it. Thanks, Ralph, in the chat room, man. Definitely appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for having me today, Ricky. Anytime, man, I could drop by. I'd love to join, have some fun talking about these sports, man. We certainly appreciate you. Keep it up. Have a great rest of the show, man. And thanks again for everything, brother.
Happy to have you. So this is Larry. They're always happy having him on the show. We do have Copa America coming up this week at MetLife on Tuesday, and then before we do the end up Thursday, Uruguay and Bolivia. So we'll do maybe some Copa America previews here on the show.
I like
that. The NBA draft coming up. So big show coming up next week. So we're going to wrap things up over here. Good show. Thank you guys for tuning in again at Rickinator555 on X and all that stuff, at NY State Sports IE, at IE Sports Radio, all your stuff on social media. Doing some great stuff. So both New York baseball teams playing well. Mets winning 7 out of 8, and they keep it going with the Yankees. Big game coming up in an hour. Not a must-win, but you'd love to take 2 or 3 from the Orioles. Orioles haven't lost a series in the AL East since 2023. So it might be time for the Yankees to kind of whip Judge back, find a way to get a win for them before their series is planned in the Sunday series. NBA draft is next week. Knicks have 2 picks in the first round. We'll maybe do something before Thursday in regards to good things going on as well. NYCFC and the Red Bulls have some games going on this weekend. NYCFC's in Nashville. The Red Bulls will continue to be undefeated at home, and they've done a really good job defending their home turf. They will play Saturday against DC United. We'll see if they get a win there. We'll talk about the Liberty and their teams going on to the Knicks. First round pick. Do they worry about OG? A lot of talk about the contract stuff. We'll see when free agency gets. That's really a big thing. But thank you all for tuning this week. I thank Larry for hopping in the chat and happening into the show. Thanks for always tuning into the chat over here. Rangers Devils hockey coming up. It's should be a lot of fun. Stay cool. Stay hydrated. It's awful here, but it's summer. I mean, the dog days of summer are a little bit early. That's okay. But be sure to check that out. So for all of us here at IE Sports Radio, this is Ricky Lewis. Thanks to the University of Sports this week. Enjoy the game this week. Enjoy the NBA draft next week. Enjoy the Copa. Out in the Subway Series. Man, it was a good time. And Commissioner's Cup. So many cool events, and we'll dive along the next week. Until then, hope you enjoy your weekend. I'll see you back here next week. So long, everybody.